D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Jake Lyman back at our Game Nashville Studios. Willie Donick will be with us momentarily. We are live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Nashville Predators will host the league-leading Vegas Golden Knights tonight in the second game of this homestand. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek, glad to have you back, my friend. It was just one day, but we missed you. We're glad you're back with us today.
Well, I'm glad to be back. That one day seems like 3 or 4 days in the sporting world because it seems like you're so much out of the loop, especially the reasons why I flew back up north. My college roommate, who I consider another brother, his dad passed away. So I went there to support him because he supported me when my mom and dad passed away. Actually, he spoke at my mom and dad's funeral as one of the pastors. Not only does he, pastor, but he also runs an organization that involve dads, that take dads and reunite them with their children, or make their relationships better with their children. So had to go back up north. I always dread going up north because it's cold, even though it's cold here.
I still always say, I know that you've been living here for a long time, but of all of us, you should be the one best prepared for the cold, Mr. Michigan.
You would think, wouldn't you?
I know you've gotten a little soft.
Hey man, I'm in my 50s now. My blood has gotten a little thin.
Yes,
so.
It is a little chilly outside,
yes. But it's good to be back.
It is good to have you back. And Derek, I don't know if I hear this sort of faint flushing noise. Do you hear that? That's the sound of Sam Darnold's contract value going down the toilet after the Los Angeles Rams defeated the Minnesota Vikings 27-9 in the wild card round. That game, of course, was in Arizona because of the wildfires in Los Angeles. Sam Darnold had the season of his life up until it mattered. He played poorly against the Detroit Lions in the final game of the regular season, which is why the Vikings had to go on the road despite having that fabulous record. And then he laid another egg last night, a QBR last night of 13.6 against the Lions in the regular season finale, a QBR of 17.4. So we'll talk about Sam Darnold. We're going to talk a lot about quarterbacks today, and we're going to keep talking about quarterbacks up until the NFL draft. Right. There's a lot to discuss, but the Vikings talk about a swift fall from grace, from having the potential to be the number one seed in the NFC to losing that game in convincing fashion, 31-9. Then losing on the road again in convincing fashion, 27-9 to the Rams. If you're a Vikings fan, my condolences, because these past 2 weeks, as we welcome Willie Donick to the desk, these past 2 weeks have been tough to stomach.
Yeah, I expected this type of play. This type of play as a team, but not as a quarterback, from, say, the Washington Commanders, because it was their first year, with a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. So I thought maybe, just maybe, the playoff jitters will come into effect, and, he would be forced to throw too many times, and the numbers will look okay, but then it would be, after it's all said and done, it would be, well, he made a lot of mistakes, the team didn't play well, and they end up losing. I expected that from the Commanders because that's not a veteran-led team. I didn't expect this from the Minnesota Vikings, a veteran-led team with the best wide receiver in the National Football League. You have a really good defense, and you've been playing really good. Hell, you've been playing you played at a Pro Bowl level, an all-pro level, Sam Darnold. But the last 2 weeks has just been, I don't know if it finally sort of caught up with him. The league had caught up with Sam Darnold, or the team just wasn't playing well on the defensive side of the ball. But I'm not sure how much this has hurt Sam Darnold from this standpoint. because there's not many quarterbacks out there.
It's the supply and demand.
Exactly,
right?
absolutely.
He's
So
still the best of the
he's
group.
still the best of the guys that are that will currently be free agents or that we think teams will eventually move away from. He's still the youngest and the best. So I don't know. Maybe it affects the guarantee money, but I don't think as far as a contract, I don't think he was ever a $50 million guy, even with these numbers. I thought he was around Baker Mayfield, 35-ish, somewhere around there, close to 40. I think he will still sort of get that, but there will not be a lot of guarantees. There may be some escalators, but there will be no guarantees.
Somebody, it just
Exactly,
as I say, it just takes
absolutely.
one. Somebody's going
one
to
guy.
jump out
Exactly.
and pay him pretty well, even with the SAG at the end of the season.
Because it didn't take these two games for me to say Sam Darnold is not. He's a good quarterback, but he's not. His numbers, he isn't what his numbers say they are. I don't think it took the last 2 weeks for GMs to say, "Oh well, no, I ain't paying him no money now."
Yeah.
I think they knew who he was, and they figured, okay, if we can get him in here, surround him with a few people, he can put up these type of numbers. And if he does, that makes us a winning team.
Willie,
I still wouldn't rule out.
Right,
Go
you
ahead.
sent us. I'm sorry. You sent us a tweet last night from Andrew Brandt, I believe, talking about the recency bias.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
In this situation.
I think he used to join our show on a regular basis. I think he's a very good perspective. He's been a guy. Andrew Brandt, for people that don't know, was an agent for a long time, so he's got that perspective. He also worked for the Packers as one of their guys in the interior, salary caps, contracts, all that stuff. So he's become like a professor. So I think he's always had very good perspective on this. And he said 3 weeks ago, Sam Darnold was looking at $50 million. You know, everybody at the peak, he's put these great numbers up. Now talk of Vikings moving on. Both are recency bias. And he said, once we get to late February and early March, when the dust settles, there will be a more reasoned analysis to assess and project. This is how teams operate, not the roller coaster ride of weekly emotions. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, just from the Vikings perspective, is there a faction of people in there that said, let's let the kid marinate a little bit more and let's bring Sam back? And in this moment, it's hard to do that. I think of the Predators last year would be an example. There's some other examples in football I'm sure we can cite when a team overachieves. Like none of us had the Vikings in the playoffs when we did predictions. I didn't even consider them. I think around the league, when you looked at that division with the Packers,
the Lions,
with the Lions,
we even thought the Bears would be a
with the Bears
team.
as an intriguing team, as a sort of a sleeper pick. There was a lot more people that probably picked the Bears to make the playoffs than the Vikings. Right. And here they are at 14-3, and there is a big downer just because of the way it ended. So how do you grasp that? Right. Everybody's devastated because 2 weeks ago you were sitting there going, you could be the number 1 seed, and now your season is over. That is always a tough. It's hard to remember that you overachieved and you had such a great year when it ends like that, right? Troy Aikman was kind of saying that in the closing minutes of the broadcast last night.
But I think there are GMs around and possibly even including, the, future GM here. They looked at Sam Darnold one way, and regardless, unless he wins the Super Bowl, then okay, we can kind of, get outside the box or how we feel about him. But I believe the consensus is he's a good quarterback, and we're not going to pay him $50 million just because he was put underneath center with a great receiver on one side and a damn good receiver on the other side.
Got a pretty good tight end too.
Then they got a really good
and a good running back.
Exactly, and you got O'Connell as your offensive coordinator / head coach. So you were destined for some success because you're a good quarterback, and I think that's how probably some GMs looked at it and said, "Listen, okay, if he has a good season, this is what we will potentially pay him." I'm not sure anyone ever thought, okay, we're going to pay Sam Darnold $50 million.
That wouldn't be smart.
I think it'd be 35 or 45, somewhere around there, 35 or 40.
If you're Darnold, would you take a little less to stay in a place that you have thrived? I think that is something that doesn't get done very often. There's usually the agent saying, you got to cash in, man. This is your chance to catch it.
Mhm.
But I think there's something to be said for staying in a place that you've been successful, even with the kid there, with McCarthy there.
Mhm.
I still think there'll be a lot in his favor, but it was tough to watch. I don't care about the Vikings at all, but I felt for Sam Darnold. He was awful last night, holding the ball, getting sacked, nothing working, digging the hole. I thought, too, the Vikings got impatient. They panicked.
Mhm.
They went for it on 4th and 7 when they had no momentum, down 17-3. And the next thing you know, they're down 24-3. Like, that was just a terrible way to go out. They just unraveled, and it all started. The line wasn't very good, but I thought that Darnold holding the ball was a little bit like a Will Levis blown up in a bigger game, and so that's going to follow Sam Darnold until he gets back there and has a better playoff game. I think of Ryan Tannehill, right? Ryan Tannehill paid a terrible price for a couple of playoff games that didn't go well.
Exactly.
So we've got some intriguing matchups coming up in the divisional round, Saturday and Sunday. Houston, which throttled the Los Angeles Chargers, travel to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, a game I'm very interested in. The Commanders at the Lions on Saturday night.
Oh, boy.
I think that's going to be a fabulous game. Sunday, Rams and Eagles, and then the marquee matchup, Ravens and Bills. That'll be must-see TV if you're a football fan. But we didn't talk about this yesterday, Derek, because I wanted to touch on – I wanted the wide receiver to be on the show when we talked about this. A.J. Brown reading a book on the sideline. And by the way, the name of that book, Inner Excellence, Train Your Mind for Extraordinary Performance in the Best Possible Life, written by Jim Murphy. That book is now the #1 bestseller among all books on Amazon.com. So Jim Murphy should cut a check to A.J. Brown. But Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, was doing a radio appearance in Philadelphia, and he was asked a lot about this. And he said, quote, some guys pray in between, some guys meditate in between. A.J. reads in between series. Whatever these guys need to do to put their mind in a place where they can play with great detail and great effort, I fully encourage them to do that. There were questions about, is A.J. Brown frustrated? Is that why he's reading? Because he's frustrated. And I love this quote from A.J. Brown. Quote, I wasn't frustrated at all. I figured that's what y'all probably thought. Why do you always think I'd be frustrated? Dang, I like to read. End quote.
Because he does get frustrated.
But doesn't he kind of loves the attention.
Yeah.
He does.
And
but I would love your opinion on this whole thing.
It's great that he loves to read.
Reading is fundamental.
Reading is great. And listen, I would advocate for that each and every day. I just think that when you're on the football field, you're on the football field. And, because if you're down 7 points, you're not reading your book. Now, if this is something you've been doing the whole season,
which he says he did,
but
somehow
the
camera never
exactly. Camera never caught it. But
if
you've been doing it the whole season, Sirianni school with it, okay. But and this is not because no, it's not even that. Because even when I play, guys love to read. The offensive linemen, I swear, I would always see them with a book in their hand, walking through the hallway or sitting in their locker just reading. Those guys are just different guys. They're a little bit more scholarly, should I say? But when you're on the sideline, you're on the sideline, man. I don't have time to be thinking about a book that I'm going to read unless I want the attention. That's the way I see it. I'm not thinking about a book I'm going to read or who I'm going to talk to or, what I'm going to have for dinner tonight or, hey, am I going to see the wife? No, I'm not thinking about I didn't think about any of that.
It is hard to wrap your arms around during a game.
During the game.
Halftime even or before the game. I can see it more.
Exactly. That's all I'm saying.
But I'm not. Look, A.J. Brown he
can do what he wants to.
He's one of a kind.
Exactly.
But I will say this, though, okay? And just think about what we've talked about with Rand Carthon and the image of falling asleep on the plane. All of us who have been on the plane know that is what a lot of people do after a game. It means it's absolutely has no significance at all, but it's used against you. Gerard Mayo, what was his story? They used the fact that he went after a game and went and played cards with the guys.
And I don't even think he played. It just said he stood there.
He hung out with the guys playing cards. There's always a card game. Every team, I can tell you, I used to play in the card games when I was playing in a minor league baseball or on the bus or basketball with it. That's what we did.
Exactly.
And Gerard Mayo, I'm sure, did as a player.
Mm-hmm.
You want your mind to get off of the game sometimes. Mm-hmm. Some guys can dive, like I said, some guys, coaches, they will dive right back into the film. Some players want to dive right back into the iPad where you can go back and look everything that happened. It's after a game, that is the player or coach's prerogative. Sometimes you got to clear your mind for a few hours.
Exactly.
But what was it done? It was used against Gerard Mayo. So with A.J. Brown, if he has a bad game and he's on there with that book and the Eagles lose, what do you think is going to happen?
I'll tell you what's going to happen. Here's my example of a Twitter comment. The book he should be reading is the playbook.
Exactly.
That's what's going
But no,
on.
he wouldn't have the book.
100%.
But I'm telling y'all, he wouldn't have the book. I don't think, at least. I don't think he would have the book out if he's down 14 points in that situation. He doesn't have the book
I
out.
don't think so.
Again, this group of people, this generation, including my kids, I throw my kids in there too as well. But this group, not all of them, but some, everything they do from the perspective of how much attention can I get from doing this. I would have known that, okay, if I bring this book out and I pull out this book on the sideline, all the attention is gonna, and then the camera's gonna point right at. I know that. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, AJ didn't know. AJ ain't dumb. AJ is probably smarter than I am. I would bet he understands the sort of the play on attention. He understands when you do certain things. These kids understand that if I do certain things,
I'm
I
picturing
get attention.
when he went to the batting cage.
Exactly.
And they shot video of him hitting baseballs
Absolutely.
at the local club when he was like, "Oh, I don't like that. I'll go play baseball."
Exactly. So
he knew exactly what he was doing.
Just about everything these, not all, some athletes, man or woman, some of the things that they do, majority of them, it's geared toward how much attention can I get out of doing this? Because back in the day, we just did stuff just to do it. And it was like, man, I hope nobody sees it.
Right.
And you're just doing it.
And you could probably reasonably say nobody will see it.
Exactly. And
now
you know
everybody's going to see it.
Exactly. Now it's no longer, no, I'm not going to do this because I don't want nobody, even if it's good, I don't want nobody to know. Now it's, I want to make sure I do this. And so again, AJ loves to read. I advocate that, and I'm sure through his foundation, he advocates reading and everything else because he's huge philanthropist, whether it be here in Nashville, in his hometown, I think of Mississippi, home state of Mississippi, I believe, and I'm sure he's doing some things in Philly. But listen, when you're on the football field, man, that's an opportunity for you to get away from everything. Concentrate on the task at hand, because if you're not winning, you're not pulling out that book. Because if you do, everybody's looking at you like, dude, we're losing.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to take some time out and read a book, I get it. You may need to read it to get your mind off of this crazy stuff we're going through. But we're all in this together. That's just me. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I see it for what it can potentially be, him wanting the attention, rather than him saying, I just want to read, and not really paying attention to everything else around him.
All I will say is this. I appreciate A.J. Brown. If he is a voracious reader, that's great. To quote my dear friend Arthur Reed, Arthur the Aardvark,
yes,
having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
They don't even give out library cards anymore.
People are listening.
They're just happy you're at the library.
Exactly.
People are listening to this and goes, what's a library?
They're trying to burn books. They ain't giving out library cards. Come on now.
615-737.
You want to read a book? Come on in. You
Come
don't
on
need a
in.
card.
They're
Just come on
taking
in. We're
books
just
out
glad you're
left
here.
and right.
We
We're
have
glad
books.
you're here.
A lot of people don't like to read these days. They're on their phone. Here's a lot of books. Just come on in.
615-737-1025. Support your local library. 615-737-1025. Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, will join us coming up next. We'll discuss the quarterback market, the Tennessee Titans, the NFL draft, everything and anything with Tim Hasselbeck. We'll do that next. But before we do, Preds fans, don't miss Smashville Live tomorrow night at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. The player guests this week, Jeremy Lozon and Cole Smith. That's tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. D. Mace, Finnegan and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com by the one and only Tim Hasselbeck. Tim, the Tennessee Titans have started their second round of GM interviews. 6 of the 10 initial candidates are coming in for second interviews. One of those people is John Eric Sullivan of the Green Bay Packers. And we had Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, on the show yesterday. And he told us that John Eric Sullivan could be the favorite in this because Chad Brinker, because of his Green Bay Packers pedigree, wants to emulate the Green Bay Packers model with the Tennessee Titans. Now, your brother was drafted by the Green Bay Packers, played in that organization for a couple of years. We think of the Packers as the model of consistency in the NFL. You know, how replicable is that model to other teams? Could the Titans do a, for lack of a better term, Green Bay Packers light here in Nashville as they try to rebuild their franchise?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy if you get quarterback right. I mean, everybody's model, sounds great when that's the case, but yeah, I don't think you can just look at it from the standpoint of like a team had success when you look at it and just say, all right, well, and I understand Green Bay had drafted guys that they had then flipped, to other places to acquire draft picks. But yeah, I think sometimes it's no different than, hiring a coordinator to be a head coach because, an offense was really good, but it's like, all right, that's one aspect of coaching, but the skills aren't necessarily completely transferable when you talk about becoming a head coach, because maybe you no longer are a play caller on either side of the ball. So I just think when that's the major factor that's being used to identify somebody, I think I would maybe say that I don't know that that's the right way to do it. But I do think you could look around at like other personnel departments and say, all right, wow, like these guys did a really good job. Look at Baltimore, the job that they've done at tight end, linebacker, defensive back, offensive line, places like that. You look at what the Steelers have done at receiver, like year after year. Like I definitely think there are certain organizations that you can say whatever their process is evaluating some of these positions, they've absolutely gotten it right.
My question for you, Tim, is this as well. And this is something that we're going to discuss later in the program. When it comes to the Titans' decision on their next quarterback, whether they use that number 1 pick to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, whether they sign a bridge quarterback, if they decide to trade down in the draft, whatever they decide to do, how much should Brian Callahan's job status influence that decision? Because I imagine it would not be a good situation if the Titans were to use the number 1 pick in the draft on, let's say, Shedeur Sanders, and halfway through Shedeur's rookie season, Brian Callahan gets fired. How much should Callahan's status play into the decision that the Titans make at quarterback?
Well, look, if I'm the owner of the team, I want a lot of his input, right? I mean, because I don't want to fire him. I want to keep him as the head coach. I want to, I want to win with those guys. So, like, if I'm the owner of the team, that's the case. Look, if I'm the general manager, I want to choose the player that ultimately I'm going to keep or lose my job, over drafting. So, and then if you're Brian Callahan, you want to draft somebody that you think that, or put somebody in that position that you think you can actually win with. So I think it depends on who you're talking. I think it depends on who you're talking to about the situation. But I just would say, like, if it were me, I think that Brian Callahan has to have the power to have massive influence over whoever that player is. I think that he should be, he should, honestly, just a huge deep dive into it. And I think the team ultimately will be better off if, he's on the same page about it. So, and I would say this, like, I do think at times you can get, polarizing views on some quarterbacks. But I think for the most part, it's actually kind of easy to have a very similar feeling as somebody else on a quarterback. I think there are some players like Lamar when he was coming out. You could say, like, okay, like, all right, like, where is he as a passer? Like, what do we think that he can ultimately become as a passer? But I think for the most part, like, you could still get to, like, an agreeable place on, where he is and what he could be. But you definitely can do that on some of these other prospects, right? Like Drake May, like, even if you didn't think he was as good as I thought that he was, like, I think it would be hard to find somebody that thinks that he stinks, right? So, like, to me, I think this idea that, like, you're just going to have polarizing views on a quarterback evaluation with somebody that's got a lot of tape, I don't know that that's the case.
We're talking with Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst and head coach of the Innsworth Tigers. Now, Tim, I'm looking at this quarterback situation because Brinker talked about, giving time, and this is a process, and we're going to build through the draft and develop and re-sign our guys. I understand all that. I'm sure that's what every GM in the National Football League wants to do. But I don't want them to get sort of in this situation where, if you are truly going to develop through the draft, then draft your next quarterback, draft him, and then allow that quarterback to develop. Because what I can see potentially happening is them going out in the market, overpaying, and then now you're stuck with the quarterback and you're still, on a losing team. My thing is, if you want to build through the draft, if you want to give this, regime time, then, do what Washington has done. Do what Chicago is doing. Do what Houston is doing in regards to their young quarterback. Not putting a veteran guy in there to sort of be that bridge. Drafting them, developing them, and if we got to go through some growing pains, then that's what we're going to have to do. But that allows us to build our team as we're going through these pains. I think they're going to end up sort of like the New Orleans Saints. After Drew Brees left, they still hadn't been able to find a quarterback. They tried to go get everybody else's quarterback, and they still hadn't been able to solve the quarterback problem. I don't want the Titans to get in a place like that.
Yeah. So, but like, I also think you can also beat the market by going out there. Like, for example, so like here, this would be a good one. Who would you rather have, Baker Mayfield or Tua?
Baker, because he's on the field more.
Okay. Hey, guess what? Baker makes like $30 million a year, and Tua makes $51 million a year. Like, now it's a no-brainer, even if you were on the fence about it. So, like, what's Sam Darnold going to get? Like, I told you guys, and like a lot of people now, like, ooh, like maybe this changes what Minnesota does. Like, would you want Sam Darnold? Here's the thing with, like, and this is why I bring it up, D-Mays. Like, I don't really disagree with you, because I think that if you draft Jaden Daniels, then then you got it right. Like, if you draft a guy that can play, then great, you fix the problem.
Yeah.
But what if you draft a guy that stinks? And the truth is, like, I don't care how much you've evaluated quarterbacks, for how long you've evaluated quarterbacks, sometimes you get it wrong. Like, Jaden Daniels wasn't the first quarterback taken. Like, I've been doing it for ESPN in terms of the draft on quarterbacks since as long as I've worked there, 17 years. I love Drake May. I think I'm right about Drake May. But even as right as I thought that I was about Drake May, like, it's hard to argue what Jaden Daniels has done this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so maybe I was wrong still, right? So I just say that to say that, like, there's something to knowing somebody can play at that level. I just think there's something to it, because no matter how confident you think that you are about a guy being able to play at that level, we see it, like, the bust rate with quarterbacks is still so high. So like, look, I think I generally agree with you. At the same time, when I see Baker Mayfield in the postseason, making $30 million versus some of these other quarterbacks that are making 50, I'm thinking, well, shoot, like, that might be the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm just saying it because it's like, okay, going to get Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, you're going to have Ryan Tannehill for 3, maybe 4 years, and you're not going to be awful those 3 or 4 years. And maybe that doesn't allow you to draft the quarterback that you ultimately need to draft, because eventually, whether it's Sam Darnold, whether it's Derek Carr, any quarterback that is going to be on the market, potentially going to be on the market this year, even Aaron Rodgers, there's a point where you got to say, you know what? Because Steph Curry said it best last night when he talked about the Warriors and not giving away assets just to win now. It's like, let's think about the future here, because it may work for this season, but what about next season and the season after that? That made me think, like, man, as much as I want them to get a Sam Darnold or Derek Carr or somebody like that, draft your quarterback. If you feel one of these guys are worthy enough for a top 3 pick, draft them and then surround those guys and develop him and you may go through some growing pains. Washington hasn't. Houston hasn't. Chicago has somewhat, but they've allowed their quarterbacks through it all to grow.
Yeah, I just think, like, the concern I have is, like, what if you draft Kyler Murray? What if you draft Jameis Winston? Like, what if you draft one of these quarterbacks that doesn't turn out to be any good? If you draft Trey Lance or Zach Wilson and you do that stuff. So I think, like, it's a little bit like we were talking about, like, oh, hey, we want to be Green Bay, but, like, I think also, I just don't think that you pass on guy. I don't think you just go ahead and pass. Sam Darnold's 27, right? Like, Sam Darnold's 27 years old. Like, could you get him to play really good football for the next 5 years? Is he good enough to win a Super Bowl? Like, I think that he is.
Tim Hasselbeck is with us. So, Tim, let's play that out to the next level. When you have the first pick and you can dictate things. Like you were saying, we could make the argument of all the guys that have worked out and all the guys that haven't worked out. So the percentage play seems to be, if you study the draft over a 20, 30-year period, that it makes sense to trade down to get the more assets. So is that what you would be thinking? Just knowing the temptation for somebody is going to be there to trade up to get the first pick to grab one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but you can't end up like the Raiders, right? So like the Raiders went into this last draft 100% thinking that they were going to get a quarterback. Like there's no question that they did. There's no shot that they thought they were going into the year with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as their starting quarterbacks. Well, they got stuck. Like they didn't play it right. And so because they didn't play it right, like Antonio Pierce just got fired. So like generally speaking, yeah, but like you have to have somebody that you can win games with, that you can hopefully make the postseason with.
Right. But would you be thinking with the number of holes that they have to fill that the percentage play is to trade down, whether you get the quarterback or not?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you're just looking like these quarterbacks, right? Like for sure. Because I think that like some people might say, look, and I haven't done the quarterback evaluation that I'll do for ESPN yet, but like, who knows? Like maybe Cam Ward is the guy and, like Shedur's available later or vice versa, or Jackson Dart's the guy that's available later. Maybe there's somebody else that, it's a little bit like J.J. McCarthy a year ago, wasn't necessarily being talked about right now at this time of year, but by the end of it, was like, oh, okay, like he should be in the mix. So yeah, I think there's that, and then I think you've got also. So yes, is the answer, I would say, with that, because I do think that that's probably a better plan.
How tough do you think it is today in Minnesota, in particular, when it's such an interesting curve of a season where nobody thought? I don't know how you looked at them before the season. I know I barely even considered them a playoff team. Here they are, not only in the playoffs, but 14 wins, and 2 weeks ago, right on the cusp of perhaps being the 1 seed, and now you're out. That's so difficult to swallow. And there's always a team or two every year that seems to be in that boat. But when you overachieve to get there, and then you lose in such disappointing fashion last night, how do you try to process that?
Yeah, I think that's really hard. I think that's really hard because, I mean, you think about week 18, they're playing for the 1 seed. Like they're playing for a bye week. And they play really poorly. And there was a lot of talk about like, hey, how do you flush that so that you play well on the road first week of the wild card weekend, and then you play poorly again? I think, look, there aren't answers for it. I just remember being on an Eagles team that had been in the NFC Championship game, I think 3 or 4 years in a row. Like we were all. I mean, I was already planning on how I was using my Super Bowl tickets, and like I was going to make so much money. No,
I think we all
market's usually pretty good. Yeah.
No, so
I think I know something about that.
Yeah, so I'm like, and then we lose to Tampa, and it was like I just remember seeing guys crying in the locker room, like guys like Pro Bowl players crying in the locker room because it was like we didn't expect it. We were shocked. I think there was an element probably like felt like a team of destiny a little bit for the Vikings. So for that to happen, I think I think it's shocking. I think there are no answers for it, and look, I think it really affects us. Like I think it's going to affect Sam Darnold.
Well, I was going to ask you that finally here because I remember Ryan Tannehill talking openly about how to just deal with the one loss against the Bengals where nothing went right. And I'm not sure he played as bad as Sam Darnold played last night with the sacks and the going for it on the 4th and 7, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. And as bad as Tannehill played, he had a couple of tip balls, and they still were tied. Yep. They were close to still winning the game. So and we know Tannehill that really weighed on him. So
you would say that he was never really the same, though, wouldn't you?
I think that you could say that. You could make that argument for sure. And Darnold, as
you said,
is younger.
Say that same thing about Jake Delhomme after that like 4 or 5 interception performance in the playoffs when they went 14-2 that year.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think it's a thing. Like, I think it's a real thing. Now, both Ryan and Jake were a little bit further along in their careers, but they also were very established starters with, contracts that were, dictating that they were going to be the starting quarterbacks. I think this one's different. Like, I think I was off, last week talking to you guys about how, I'd be on the phone trying to get J.J. McCarthy because I think Minnesota's crazy not to keep Sam Darnold. I still think that's the case, but that's not what I think Minnesota will do.
Tim Hasselbeck, ESPN NFL analyst, joining us on the program. Tim, great stuff as always. We'll chat next week.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Yep.
Tim Hasselbeck on the program. 615-737-1025. We'll continue the quarterback conversation. Coming up next, Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
You caught my ear when you said Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Because from 2010 through 2022, Chad Brinker worked for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Which means Aaron Rodgers either loves him or hates him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no in between.
Right.
After 13 years. And when you consider that Brinker was part of the front office there, and the chronic attitude of the front office was, sit down, shut up, you just work here. Unless Brinker was the one guy who was advocating for Rodgers to have a seat at the table, chances are Rodgers isn't a Brinker guy, which could be a problem. Because I guess Rodgers was on somewhere, I guess it was McAfee, because that's all he does other than his press conference. And there was kind of a smile, the wry smile when Nashville came up. He's got a house there. And that's where you have to make the decision as the Titans. Do we go veteran that we pair with Callahan, or do we go rookie? But if there's a chance Callahan is short term, then you get a rookie quarterback that goes from one head coach to another head coach, and that might not be the ideal way to do it.
That was Mike Florio and Chris Sims discussing the Titans quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers. Robbie and Rexrow talked about Aaron Rodgers this morning, and we can talk about Aaron Rodgers, but it was that last part of that cut. The situation with Brian Callahan. We talked about this, Willie, with Teron Davenport yesterday. We talked about it just now with Tim Hasselbeck. I think Brian Callahan plays a gigantic role in this decision, not just because he wants another opportunity to prove that he can do this, but I don't think it's a great situation for the Titans to draft a rookie quarterback and then potentially fire their head coach in that rookie quarterback's first season. We saw that with Marcus Mariota. Ken Wisenhunt was the coach at the start of the 2015 season. He lasted 7 games, and then came Mike Mularkey.
Offensive coordinator, who had a lot of success calling plays. So Wisenhunt was, I guess, an older version of Brian Callahan, who was brought in as an offensive mind, right?
Yes.
So there is a parallel there, I think.
So my question for the both of you, and my question to all of you at 615-737-1025, I mean, how much do you think that should play into this decision? Because we read some quotes from Teron Davenport's story last week about Brian Callahan, and they were some stern comments from Burke Nihill about Brian Callahan needing to be better. We're going to hold him accountable.
Right. It was not a great vote of confidence for a young coach.
So if you're the Titans and you're not sure about Callahan, do you want Callahan to be part of the decision to draft the next quarterback?
Well, let's listen. Let's reference what Callahan said in his press conference. Who, by the way, let me say again, I've said it before, Callahan is the one guy who will stand up there and take the tough questions. He's the guy that will do it. Nobody else does it. So for a young guy, they have left him on an island. All right, so let's commend Callahan for actually sitting in there and answering questions, real questions, and nobody else does. So let's put that on the record. But Callahan, what did he do in his press conference, which, by the way, was 29 minutes long?
It was long.
29 minutes of getting peppered. But among the things he said was, hey, I have scouting roots. I know what it takes to be a good quarterback in the league. I feel like I can help figure out what to do with this, in so many words. That was his message across. But is that message connecting with Chad Brinker? I don't know, because as we found out the next day, Rand Carthon wasn't a part of the future, right? But I think he's sitting there going, am I going to have input on what we do at the most important position? Because like it or not, right, you could say, look, he didn't do a great job with Will Levis. He did not choose Will Levis. He got the job hoping that he could bring out the best in Will Levis. Now that ship has sailed. I think it's a huge question philosophically, because if you listen to what Teron is saying, what Jared is peddling very hard, is that it does not appear like there's a great connection between Brinker and Callahan at this time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot that I want to say, and I will say, but I'll wait till we come back off break to say it because it's long.
Okay, why don't we do that? 615-737.
The smoke is starting to rise up in here.
1025.
I
It is
feel
a-
warmer here.
it
We're
is
at-
a
we're at
little-
the-
right.
We're at an ice rink, but I feel warmer all of a sudden.
I'm going to take off my jacket. It's getting a little warm in here. 615-737-1025. We'll hear what Derek has to say coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators will host the league-leading Vegas Golden Knights tonight at 7 o'clock. Pre-game starts at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Barry Trotz scheduled to join Jared Stillman live at this very desk at 5 o'clock.
And he will be asked tough questions and answered tough questions.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. I don't want to go back down this road again. But, yes, Barry Trotz will be asked tough questions by Jared Stillman at 5 o'clock right here at Barrel House. So come on by. So before the break, we were talking about the Titans quarterback decision and the Brian Callahan factor in all of this. And, Derek, you have since cooled off a little bit.
Yeah.
The tea kettle has been taken off of the stove.
Yeah, somebody turned it down.
But now we're going to turn the heat back up. You had something to say about the situation.
It's just
The floor is yours.
It doesn't reek of a good organization. It doesn't, and I'm not saying that they are not, but I'm saying when things like this is occurring, that's not synonymous with, oh, this is a great organization, a great franchise. I think Amy, for what it's worth, I think she's done a great job at taking this franchise from where it was when she took over to where it is now. But even in that, there has been some mishaps, I do believe. Firing a little bit prematurely. And in this case, your president of football, I believe that's what Burke Nihill is.
The Supreme. Oh, no,
Yeah,
that's
Burke,
Chad
yeah,
Brinker.
Chad
I'm sorry.
Brinker is
He's the
Supreme,
president.
yeah.
He's the president and CEO,
Yeah.
Burke Nihill.
Yeah, but
Chad Brinker
right.
is the supreme ruler.
And
Exactly.
it's important to note, Burke Nihill is not a football
Guy.
person.
Yeah.
Right. He's a business person.
Is
He's
that
a
the
lawyer.
role that Steve Underwood had?
More or less?
Jeff Diamond, maybe.
Well, Jeff Diamond was
But he had
more
some
in the
football,
cap.
yeah.
He was more in the cap era, right? He was more of a football.
But he was
person.
labeled their president.
He was.
I
He
think
was.
Yeah.
We get back to our theme. Titles
Exactly.
don't always
It
mean what you
means-
think they might mean. It's
Exactly.
different for every person. I still am amused
Mhm.
when you go on the Titans website today. Go through it. If you want to have some interesting moments, like what does this person do? You won't see a bio
No.
for
No.
half of the people, at least.
Maybe they just hadn't.
You may
updated
not
it.
even seen a picture.
Just pretend you're one of the Bobs from Office Space and go, what would you say
The Bobs.
you do here?
The Bobs would have a field day with that website.
So when things like this happens, that's what you tend to think. But I'm not going completely that way, as some people have said, about Amy. I think she's. You could have a worse owner. I think she's sort of in the middle when you talk about owners, in regards to that. But the last couple of moves have been sort of head scratching, especially in this one when Nihill comes out and said, well, Callahan knows that basically he has to win next year. We're not accepting losing. Well, if you're saying that about Brian Callahan, why didn't you say that about Brinker? Because all these guys are attached. It's like you're skipping that to go to the head coach. Now you put the head coach in a situation. If the head coach doesn't have a say on who my next quarterback is going to be, or how am I going to design this team in order for me to win on the field, if he doesn't have that much say, you might as well fire him now, because basically he's just a suit or a hat out there on the field, and you're putting him in a position now where, listen, even the great coaches and great players, they say, listen, it's all about taking that next step. You're not focused on everything else. You're focused on taking that one step after another, staying focused. But there's you can only give so much focus when everything around you seems to be going up in flames, or you have no idea what your future is going to look like beyond this season. Is winning 6 games enough next year? Is winning 7 games enough next year? I'm sure. I don't know if they gave him an exact number. They just want to see real improvement. But what does real improvement look like? In my case, meaning Brian Callahan, does it mean I get to go out, like you said, Willie, and pick my guy? Trust that I can evaluate these quarterbacks. I have been, working with quarterbacks since I damn near been in the NFL, so I know a thing or two or four about quarterbacks. So his thing is, let me go pick my guy. Let me be a huge part of going out and whether it's getting a bridge quarterback or getting the rookie quarterbacks via the draft. Let me be a big part of doing that, because if I'm not, what am I here for? Because if I don't win, you're going to fire me. And what if that guy's not my guy? What if that's not the guy that fits my system, that I can say, okay, this guy, I envision him running my system this way, and you go get another guy. Wow.
Well, and this may well be how they evaluate.
Yeah.
And that is, we've looked at everything. Let's look at the rookies that are coming up. Let's look at Sanders. Let's look at Ward. Let's look at everybody else. Let's also assess what's there on the free agent market. Darnold, Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, the Steelers,
Jimmy Jones,
the Steelers
whoever.
situation. Yeah, there could be another Jones or two in there, probably. And you come to the assessment, this isn't the year to really go out and try to reach for a quarterback. So let's table it for a year. Let's tell our fans this is what we've decided to do. We're going to try to address what is out there where we can fill a lot of holes on our roster. That might be the best way to go.
But then that means you got to give your head coach more
That's
time.
what I'm getting at. That's what I'm getting at. Brian Callahan might say, this is what we should do. But wait a minute. If we end up with a high first-round pick again next year, am I going to take the fall? That's not fair.
Yeah.
If that's what we assess, when you go to the grocery store, you assess the groceries. I need bananas, but all the bananas are about to rot. Well, do I come home with with 5 brown bananas and say, here, we need bananas? or my family go, why didn't you just get the grapes? The grapes were better. This is what they're up against, really. They got a lot of holes. They need everything. They don't just need a quarterback.
If they want to make Brian Callahan a big part of going out, and I'm not saying that they are not. You just don't know because they haven't addressed the hiring of a GM. So you don't know what that GM is going to be thinking moving forward once he or she gets the job. You know a little bit about what Brinker said, but hell, I could have threw any GM, / whatever his title is. I could have threw them up there. They were regurgitated the same thing he did. So that's his broad message that every GM has. What is going to be the actual GM's thought process of, okay, yeah, I know we want to draft, develop, re-sign, build through the draft, but what if he says, listen, we gotta jumpstart this a different way. I know we can still build through the draft, but we gotta jumpstart a different way. Are you Brinker then in the same boat with the GM? Are you Callahan in the same? What if Callahan and the GM are in the same boat? Brinker has say. See, this is what happens. This is what happens when the process is not put together the right way. Then you're going to end up getting situations like this. So, moving forward, we don't know the directions. But my thing with Callahan is he has to, like you said, I know the recipe for the dinner, for whatever it is. I know the recipe. I'm telling you what to go get. Go get it. I'm telling you, this is what I need. Go get it. And like you said, well, nah, I'm going to go get. It's just like, no, I'm telling you exactly what, like in the parameters, get the bananas or the grapes. If the bananas ain't right, get the grapes. And you go get a pear. I can't, no, the recipe doesn't call for a pear. It said banana or grapes. I don't know what kind of recipe that may be a fruit salad.
Yeah, what do you make?
That may be a fruit salad. Yeah, there we go.
But the thing would be, if the fruit salad ends up bad,
exactly,
it's on the coach.
Absolutely.
It's not on the guy that decided to bring in the pears. Yeah.
I told you to go get the apples and the grapes, and you got me pears, but you're gonna blame me because it's nasty.
Yeah.
That's what
pears
happened.
aren't that bad though, Adam.
Yeah, pears are good.
Pears are okay, right?
I like
pears. Pears are fine.
I ate 2 pears last week, so I'm good.
Stephen from Henderson.
I
Stephen
think you
from
bring pears to the studio before.
yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Stephen from Hendersonville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, says, if Amy Adams Strunk fires Brian Callahan after the team wins 5, 6, or 7 games next year, then they absolutely cannot draft a quarterback. It is disastrous to change offenses after a young quarterback's first season. If she's leaning that way, then pull off the Band-Aid. She can't play musical chairs with the coach and front office while trying to develop a young quarterback. Now, Stephen is talking about next season, after the team wins 5, 6, or 7 games next year.
But I understand what he's saying from this point.
I'm talking about mid-season firing versus at the end of next season.
Well, if they mid-season fire him, you might as well not even. You
but
probably
the point from Stephen is well made.
Yeah, It is. That's it's a situation like you said. If you fire him in the middle of the season, then you should have fired him. You shouldn't even brought him back as head coach because, as you mentioned, what about the chemistry with the rookie quarterback if indeed you go down that road? So you want to fire him in the middle of the season? Well, you shouldn't allow him to draft a quarterback. And what constitute as a winning season? That's what I go back to. What constitute as a winning season?
And are we saying it's a rebuild now?
Exactly. What are we saying here? Rebuild? What constitutes as a winning season? Is it 5 games? Is it winning 3 more games than we did the previous season? What constitutes as winning? Because what if I go out and I improve by 3 games and now we're 6-12 or 7-11? Am I coming back as a head coach? Or are you saying, no, that wasn't good enough? We're going to go, well, we already drafted our quarterback and putting him in the system. Now you're changing the systems all over again. That right there is the reason why she should have just fired everybody or kept everybody.
Wes in Clarksville says, when Mike Vrabel beats the Titans, I guarantee they will fire Brian Callahan. The Patriots will be in town next season, and I'm hoping for Brian Callahan's sake that game is very early in the season. I hope it's the first game of the season, because I don't think he's going to be fired after game 1. But if it's week 9, week 10, week 11, and things aren't going well, and then Mike Vrabel pulls the A.J. Brown and runs over to the goalpost and starts smacking it with the towel, things could be bad for Brian Callahan. But I'm just, if I were a Titans fan, I would be a little concerned about the idea of Brian Callahan having a say in the drafting of a quarterback, and then Brian Callahan not being on firm ground, the Titans firing him.
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense to me because
it doesn't, but you never know.
Year. If this was his 4th year and 3 years hadn't gone well, then I would really lean towards, well, look, this isn't good. But he just got there.
Yeah.
He just got there. You should believe that you should still be in the belief that you hired the right guy. You should not turn on a guy that quick.
Let's take this time to discuss the other part of that Florio and Sims clip. Aaron Rodgers. Robbie and Rexrow talked about that this morning. We've talked about Aaron Rodgers in the past as a bridge quarterback. I liked Mike Florio's point about Aaron Rodgers knows Chad Brinker. They worked in the same organization for a long time. So there's probably no middle ground. He either loves Chad Brinker or he doesn't. And you could talk about the viability of Aaron Rodgers as a bridge quarterback, but if Chad Brinker is dead set on emulating the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers could be that bridge quarterback. What do we think of that idea?
I think it would be great.
We're talking strictly on the field.
Yeah,
I know that it comes with the Pat McAfee show and all that other stuff.
Well, that may be good for your organization. But
what else do you get? Okay, you also
Randall Cobb.
No,
that's where I was going.
No.
When the Jets brought in
Alan Lazard.
That's where I'm going.
No, because
but that's what. Okay, but
Aaron Rodgers
he wants his guys.
Aaron Rodgers is not in the same chair that he was in 2 years ago.
But he wants his guys.
I understand it, but he's not in the same
and the Jets
chair.
Accommodated him.
That was the
guys.
Jets.
They brought in the play caller that he wanted.
I don't think the Titans will accommodate Aaron Rodgers.
And where does that leave Callahan?
In that regard, here's the deal. At least for me, I know everybody wants to, dump on Aaron Rodgers about what he does on the outside world. I don't think what he does in his personal time in this regard, like what he's doing, it's great. He's working on himself. Isn't that what we talk about all the time? Mental health. And every time something goes wrong,
that stuff doesn't bother me.
I'm not talking about you, Willie. I'm just talking about all those that say, well, it comes with the circus. Everything that has happened, let's just say in the last 2 years with the Jets, Saleh could have handled that whole Aaron Rodgers thing a lot better than he did. He could, because when that question was asked to Rodgers, where's Rodgers at? To my knowledge, they knew Rodgers was going to be going somewhere. He could have just said, we discussed it. Rodgers is gone. He's been here. It's no story. Let's move on. But he didn't. He knew exactly what he was doing, and by the way he answered it. And then that started all this whole storm of Aaron Rodgers is out doing this and, working on himself, and he should be in camp. He was in camp basically the whole time. So he took a couple of days off, and he told the franchise before he took the couple of days off. See, here's the stuff that if you don't like Aaron Rodgers, you'll point to that stuff and say, oh, all of that is bad. I don't hear Aaron Rodgers players, the guys, they're not complaining about Aaron Rodgers and what he's doing. They are not complaining about it. Everybody else is complaining, but the guys that are actually on the field with Aaron Rodgers. Look at the numbers if we're talking about strictly on the field. Look at the numbers. He's still a top 15 quarterback. Hell, I'd take him over 26, 25. No, I'd take him over 24 other quarterbacks in this league. Right now, I would take Aaron Rodgers over.
At age 41.
At age 41. I would take, because he seemed to get healthier.
With
at
the personnel that you see for the Titans.
I feel if you go get Rodgers, I think you could still be, you're still able. That's if you trade out of that first pick and still want to get your quarterback. You accumulate a lot of picks.
Aaron Rodgers, by the way,
around him.
finished 25th among qualified quarterbacks in QBR this past regular season.
With Breece Hall.
48.2.
With Devontae Adams. With
Garrett Wilson.
Well, Devontae Adams didn't come on until later in the season.
About midway through the season.
Aaron Rodgers was coming off an Achilles. The first half of the season, the second half of the season, he played a lot better. They even said it, like you started to see the spring in his step, him moving around. A guy at 40 coming off of the Achilles is going to take some time. It takes a guy 23 or 24 when he comes off of Achilles. It takes some time to build back up. Aaron Rodgers shows that he still can compete at a high level. If you want to win 7 or more games on the bridge quarterback that you want to keep for a year, because I don't know how long the Titans are going to want to keep this bridge quarterback. Maybe they sign Darnold to a 5 or 6 year deal and sort of skip the process of getting a quarterback this year. Trade out of it. Darnold, you're our franchise guy for the next 5 years, like they did Tannehill. Then we build up the roster around him. Maybe they do it that way. But if they're going to do it for a 1 year deal, I think you put the eggs in the basket of Aaron Rodgers. Not all of them. But you put some of those eggs in that Aaron Rodgers basket and build around him. And I guarantee he will play like the Aaron Rodgers did at the end of the season, at the beginning of the next following season. I wouldn't rule this Aaron Rodgers thing out completely. I really don't. And I understand that people say, well, the circus that comes with Aaron Rodgers, it's no more circus that came with Jeffrey Simmons or anybody else that has been around here.
Speaking of circuses.
And I'm not saying that Jeffrey's a circus.
I know, but he did like that tweet.
Exactly.
And they had to clean it up.
Did he
He did respond to it. He did put out a Twitter something.
I thought he erased it.
Maybe he did. I don't know. I don't pretend to pay attention to everything that happens on social media anymore. But speaking of circuses, we have a conversation that is right out of the Sports Talk Radio playbook. If there was a Sports Talk Radio class, a Rocks for Jocks-esque class, this would be Sports Talk Radio 101. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
All right, with all that excitement in the backdrop, it is time for some Predators hockey tonight, and that means we talk Lee Company. Preds will play the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. Lee Company, meanwhile, with all the cold temperatures, continues to work away to make sure everybody's got their heating unit running properly. But that's just the tip of the iceberg for what all Lee Company does to keep your house running smoothly. And at work, by the way, if you've got a maintenance issue right now at work, you're a phone call away, 615-567-1000, or you can go to leecompany.com and make an online appointment. That goes for home or at your business. General maintenance is one of the things in their portfolio. But also, I always stress heating, cooling, plumbing, electric. That is their system year-round for the coverage. The preventive maintenance plan, the home maintenance plan is what they call it. It's very effective. LeeCompany.com is the website. And once again, your phone number, 615-567-1000. Lee Company, in business since 1944, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D-Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 the game. We will get to our Sports Talk Radio Red Meat coming up in just a moment. But we have a couple of calls on Aaron Rodgers, so let's get to those now. Steve is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Steve, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Just a couple comments on Aaron Rodgers. I think the biggest thing I see with Aaron Rodgers is he's going to put people in those seats in that stadium. I mean, there's a lot of fans, a lot of PSL holders who are holding out, not wanting to renew. I think that would draw them in. And then secondly, I think Aaron Rodgers would fit a scheme where getting the ball out of his hand quick, getting a lot of screen passes and things. I think he would fit the scheme with Callahan. But more than anything, just getting people in that stadium.
Thanks for the call, Steve. So let me answer the first question, and then Derek, you can handle the second one. I don't anticipate Aaron Rodgers being the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans when the new stadium opens.
No, not
so
at all.
I hear what Steve is saying, and I do think there is a lot of that from Titans fans about putting an entertaining product on the field when that palatial new stadium opens in a couple of years. But where Aaron Rodgers is, and if the Titans were to sign him, I can't imagine he would still be at quarterback in a couple of years. But Steve also talked about the schematic fit between Aaron Rodgers and Brian Callahan. Do you see that?
I think there can be. I think with any veteran quarterback, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, there has to be some concession there. There has to be a meeting at the minds for both ends because, yes, you are the head coach / coordinator, but, man, I've been doing this at a high level for a very long time. I know these offenses front, forward, and backwards. And if I'm correct, the offense that the Titans run is it similar to what Rodgers has been running, whether it be at Green Bay or now with the Jets. I think there can be a meeting of the minds with the young Callahan and the older veteran like Aaron Rodgers. Because, again, any potential Hall of Fame quarterback, I'm sure Tampa had to make concessions for Tom Brady.
Yes.
But obviously he had won 6 Super Bowls. So, yeah, you're going to make concessions for Tom Brady. But the Broncos definitely made a concession for Peyton Manning. Drew Brees, there probably was some meeting of the minds after Drew Brees got into his career and was successful on how they want to run the offense in certain points of the game. Not to say he had full control because we know Sean Payton, that's Sean Payton's thing. But I'm sure within the game, Drew Brees had some leeway in regards to what they were calling. So any quarterback that you get right now, especially a guy with the resume of Aaron Rodgers, there has to be some type of meeting of the minds concessions here. But I don't think it would be to a point where Callahan just throws down the clipboard and said, you know what, I give up. I don't think it's to that point because Callahan understands he has to win now. Give me what I need to win now. And if Aaron Rodgers, I think a lot of it does depend on Callahan, hopefully. And if Callahan says, yes, go talk to Aaron Rodgers. If Callahan says, go talk to Aaron Rodgers, and you and Aaron Rodgers are in agreement with some things, then I'm bringing Aaron Rodgers in because that tells me, okay, he wants to work with Aaron Rodgers because the caller said it perfectly. What has been the Titans' problem? Not getting the ball out of their hands of the quarterback very quickly.
Big problem.
And what does Aaron Rodgers do better than anybody in the National Football League, even at the age of 41? Get rid of the ball very quickly. Even with the Jets, he wanted to get rid of the ball quickly. But at times he couldn't because guys were not open. So he had to hold the ball a little bit longer. But if you want this offense to flow with some efficiency, that's why you put Mason Rudolph in. You want the ball released quickly, which tells receivers, get in and out of your route quickly. We don't need you to be doing this other stuff. Then you go get a guy like Aaron Rodgers because that's what he will do for your offense.
The only thing I would add would be the price. And that would be the Tim Hasselbeck, who's better, Baker Mayfield or Tua?
I get that.
You might say, okay, take the price away. Well, we could make an argument on either guy. Now I tell you that Baker Mayfield is $20 million less than Tua. Now it makes it pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
So remember the old discount double check?
Yeah.
For Aaron Rodgers? I would want the discount double check.
Exactly.
I mean,
double check.
Yeah, and maybe he's in the mindset, look, I've made a lot of money. I want to play on it. I'm only here for a year, maybe 2 years, like Brady kept playing in his 40s. I don't know. But you would say, look, I need to help this team win now because I'm not signing up for a 3-year thing. So it's a huge philosophical situation. I still am in the real world of this team needs to build. It's the best way to be good for a long time and not a 1-year fix or a 2-year fix, but that's me.
Wayne is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Wayne, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
So, yes, sir. Thank you for having me. So I'm taking it you're doing away with your draft pick of not getting a quarterback.
Not necessarily. Because if you're getting a guy like Aaron Rodgers, I could see if you were getting Sam Darnold, which he's going to be looking for a longer term. Now, if you want to go that route with Darnold, then that's fine. But if you're getting Aaron Rodgers, it's 1 year, maybe 2, but you do have to draft a quarterback when you have an opportunity.
We're discussing any and all possibilities,
exactly, yes,
Wayne.
any and all
Now,
possibilities.
Will there ever be a McCarthy Rodgers reunitement in Nashville?
Interesting. Wayne,
Yeah.
thank you for the call. So Mike McCarthy out as Dallas Cowboys head coach. He is reportedly set to interview with the Chicago Bears. I wonder if Mike McCarthy, I did not ask Wayne this question. I wonder if he's talking about Mike McCarthy as coach. Maybe you bring Mike McCarthy in some capacity. But what do you think of Wayne's idea? If you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, what about Mike McCarthy?
And that does bring up a big question for the Titans that has been overshadowed by the GM search and the drama of Rand Carthon, and that is they really haven't addressed the coaching staff, changes, not changes, etc. Right? And this is a good ways removed from when a lot of teams do it. There were teams that said the day after the season, we're moving on from this guy, coordinators. Some teams do that on the Black Monday
because you want guys to get a jump start on finding another job.
You want to do the right thing by them and let them jump
Jerry
into
Jones.
the mix.
Jerry Jones put himself in a bad situation by dragging out the Mike McCarthy thing until he did, because all of the top coaches are already in the interview process with other teams. So where does that leave the Cowboys in their search for a head coach?
It leaves them in the place of, well, hopefully after this next round of playoffs that we can talk to a Ben Johnson, or we can talk to one of these other coaches that may still be playing in the playoffs because they missed their window to talk to them prior to the playoffs.
And here in this city, are they that worried about what happens with Dallas? No, but let's bring it back to the question about McCarthy.
That's what I meant.
It's what I brought up initially, D-Mace, of if you go down the Aaron Rodgers path, there is a domino. Well, maybe we should bring in McCarthy. Well, maybe you should. What other people? He seems. How do you want him to succeed? So your mindset changes, and it begins revolving around putting the people in place that he would be comfortable with. And I'm not sure that works in the big picture. That's what I would.
But
fear.
you want him to succeed based upon the structure you've set already. Whatever structure that is, because I don't see much structure.
And can the Titans do that? Can the Titans do that?
That's for another day. That's for another day. Okay, we can have a 3-hour-long discussion about just that alone. But if I understand with the whole and bringing him in, and who else do we bring in if we bring in Aaron Rodgers? I just think that Aaron Rodgers doesn't sit in a position of power in regards to how I navigate myself through free agency. 2 years ago, he sat at the supreme seat, not the supreme
ruler.
Yeah, the supreme ruler.
He was the supreme ruler
of
the New York Jets. Except for Brick Johnson, one of Woody Johnson's sons. Brick Johnson had a little throne right next to Aaron Rodgers' throne.
Doesn't Brick Johnson sound like the villain?
I said yesterday when you weren't here, Brick Johnson sounds like the villain in an 80s ski movie with the pastel ski suit and the tennis racket and the polo.
There is a typecast character in some movies of the boss's son, who's the
mean one,
right?
The evil one.
Yeah.
But my thing is this:
the evil one, or the guy that's just been handed everything, and he's a bum. He doesn't work very hard, but he's got this really big position. Right.
It's like, but so if you're going to, my thing is, if you're going to bring in an Aaron Rodgers, you have to have that talk of, hey, listen, we understand what you did 2 years ago with the Jets. You were in a position of power. Now you're not in that position anymore. We want you as our quarterback, and we may go out and get, we may acquire about Devontae Adams, just may acquire about him. But we're not sitting here promising you that we're going to get every receiver that you want, veteran receiver, or we go out and get some assistant coaches that we want, that you may want. No, my coaching staff is set. Who we choose to go get in free agency, we will consult with our head coach, and our head coach will kind of get together, and our head coach will tell us, hey, this is the route we need to go down, and we'll go out and find the players. But we're not going to, just for a year and possibly 2, we're not going to build everything around what Aaron Rodgers said. The Jets tried that first year. It didn't work, okay? It really didn't work the second year, but they didn't, bring in guys that he wanted other than Devontae Adams toward the end. My thing is that you explain this stuff to him. You bring him in for a year. If you still can draft your quarterback, you draft him, accumulate some draft, move down, accumulate some picks, get your quarterback, and then you sort of move on from that aspect. But I think you got to win this year.
Mhm.
I don't know what they quantify as a improved season or winning season, but whatever you may think, you need to times that by another 2 or 3, because if you win 6 games, that may not be good enough for them.
Quickly, Chad in Nashville is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hunting.com. Chad, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
D Mace, you know I'm a huge fan. I love you. Madly respect you, but this is some of your worst work right here, bro.
Go ahead.
Aaron Rodgers would be the worst thing that the Titans could do. You talk about bringing a cancer.
Chad, it's hard to hear you. It sounds like you're in a wind tunnel.
No, is that any better?
Yes,
Is that any
thank you.
better?
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers would be a cancer to this organization. If you sit him down and say you have no place of power with his mentality, name a coach that he's got along with in the last 10 years. He is an absolute cancer. Horrible, worst idea I've come up with. I mean, the worst. Sam Darnold would be my choice. He is now, 2 weeks ago, he is getting paid $50 million a year, and he's the answer to everybody's question. 2 weeks later, his stock has dropped below. That's the guy you want to build around, and then you draft a guy. Super cheap now, a guy who's had almost an MVP season, who needs to be coached to the next level. If Callahan's legitimately a coach, Darnold's the guy. 2 years, $25 million a year, that's a bargain, and then you go and draft. Aaron Rodgers, absolute guaranteed, verified train wreck. Worst idea of all time. Love you guys.
I appreciate that
you
at
might
the
be
end.
a little bit underselling the market when you say 2 years, $25
He's
million
not-
a year for Darnold.
Darnold
I think
is
he's
not
going to get
taking
more
a
than that.
2-year deal.
But let's hold
I
off.
think he's going to get more.
Let's hold off on that, and we'll pick this up on the other side. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal to shed some extra pounds, only to come up disappointed. At Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mason, Ginadonic, 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen here. I just banged the crap out of my knee.
That's never good.
I feel like Peter Griffin in that scene from Family Guy going, ah, that's what I'm doing right now. it's bad. Anyway, I'm a professional, so I am going to power through the pain here. Nothing hurts worse than a banged knee. But Chad called in and said that Aaron Rodgers, Derek Mason would be the worst idea ever, period. But he also talked about Sam Darnold and his value after the loss to the Rams, and I guess also after the loss to the Lions at the end of the regular season. This was Troy Aikman talking to Scott Van Pelt after the game last night about the impact that Sam Darnold's past 2 weeks could have on his next deal.
Sam Darnold, look, man, this game, it grades with a sharp pencil, and it ends with a thud for Minnesota and Darnold, who played so well all year, 14 victories. They come up short in Detroit, which means they had to go on the road, and now this performance. Troy, as this offseason looms for him and this team, how do you think these last couple of performances will impact what ultimately happens for Sam Darnold?
Big impact. Yeah, these last 2 weeks will have a big impact on his future, not only what that may look like for the Minnesota Vikings, but a big impact on what that may look like for him going to another team. Is there going to be the big payout that looked inevitable a few weeks ago? May not be quite as big as what Sam or others thought. These are the games that matter. He knows that. Every quarterback that plays in this league knows that. And when you get into these games, that's what you're judged on. And it's not all on him. There were a lot of people that contributed to them not playing better last week and then again this week. But ultimately, the quarterback, especially more so in today's game than ever before, the quarterback is expected to overcome those things. And so it's a tough way to finish. I said it during the ball game. It doesn't really matter if you win 14 games. Not that you got to go win the Super Bowl because only one team gets to do that. But when you don't even win a playoff game, you're lumped in with all the teams really that didn't even make the postseason. So this is a tough one. And for Kevin O'Connell with a good team again this year, had one 2 years ago, to come away without a playoff victory is a hard pill to swallow.
That was Troy Aikman talking with Scott Van Pelt after the game last night. We have one texter that says, I think Sam Darnold would be a good choice, but how much of his success was the Minnesota team?
Again,
that is the $1 million, $40 million, $50 million question as it relates to Sam Darnold. But do you want to respond to Chad about his Aaron Rodgers, your worst idea ever period?
Yeah. First, what only thing I disagree with Troy Aikman is the whole playoff thing. No, you don't want to be when you make the playoffs. You make the playoffs, whether you exit the first round or exit, AFC, NFC championship game or make it to the Super Bowl. You don't want to be one of those teams left out of it. And you're never considered, well, they might as well have not made it. No, he knows that just as well as any NFL player knows that. So that's probably the only thing I disagree with Troy Aikman about in regards to that. But again, I go back to Aaron Rodgers. The narrative was set by those that may have disagreed with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is this. Aaron Rodgers is that. I haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen those that play with Aaron Rodgers say anything bad about him. Like on a consensus, like everybody walks out of there and says, man, Aaron Rodgers is just like, man, I can't deal with that guy. No, he's been such a good teammate. Guys want to come with him where he goes. That speaks volumes. I damn with a coach and a GM. Like stuff like that happens with coaches and GM and players because there's contracts involved. And maybe, listen, I don't blame Aaron Rodgers for holding the Green Bay Packers the way he did because they do it to the players, not Green Bay, but owners do it to players. So I don't care in regards to the money part. Like he wanted his money. You was dumb enough to pay him. You paid him. So be it. Live with whatever decision you made in regards to your contractual obligations to Aaron Rodgers. That's why so many people are upset at Aaron Rodgers. Probably a lot of Green Bay fans too, because of the way he sort of exited Green Bay. But every player that has talked about Aaron Rodgers just about, they like the guy. Off the field, in the locker room, he's a leader, all this other stuff. What I'm saying with the Tennessee Titans, because again, if you're going to go out and get Sam Darnold, which I don't disagree with, then you understand that 2-year standpoint, 2 years, $50 million. Seriously? He will laugh in your face and say, next team. Okay? So you're not going to get Sam Darnold 2 years, $50 million. You're not going to get it for 2 years. You're going to have to invest, just like Atlanta had to invest some years in an aging Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm.
You got to invest, especially with Darnold being 27, you're going to have to invest at least 5 years into that guy. And what comes with 5 years? Typically $40 million, $35 to $45 million. He may, the $50 million, I don't know if he will reach that, even before the last 2 games. But 35 to 45, oh, yes, and you're going to have to commit to him 3 to 5 years, not 2, not 1 or 2, because a 2-year deal is what essentially, Willie?
A 1-year deal.
So you're not committing to a 27-year-old for 1 year. I can commit to an Aaron Rodgers, who I know will get rid of the ball very quickly, who I know is going to show up on game day and play. You're going to get the best out of Aaron Rodgers, especially now that he's fully healthy. It's about winning in this league, okay? And if Aaron Rodgers can still win and produce, he had a hard time of winning with the Jets, but I don't think it was all his fault. But he produced in regards to the numbers. If Will Levis has the season that Aaron Rodgers had, where are the Tennessee Titans?
I mean, I see where you're going.
They're close to the playoffs, right or wrong.
You've made a compelling argument. Yeah, I agree. They'd have been way better. How much better? I don't know. Enough to get to the playoffs. It gets to my question. Would it be worth the short-term investment, and would it mess up your long-term? How much success could you have in the short term, knowing that he's 41? Now, you could sit there with the Brady thing and say, hey, Tom Brady was far from done at 41. He kept playing. He won a Super Bowl.
He could have played a year after that.
He was, 44 when they won the Super Bowl? I look stupid on the show because I was sitting there going,
42.
When he
41, 42,
when the Titans beat him, when Vrabel's Titans team beat Brady in his last game as the New England quarterback, and at that time, if you remember, the Titans had a choice of, do we want to latch on and sign Tannehill to the next big deal?
Or Brady?
Or do we want to go down the Brady thing, Brady and Vrabel, all that stuff? I was like, why would you want to go to Brady at this stage of his career? He's done. I thought he was aging. I thought it was, the days were behind. And he played for, we know what happened.
3 more seasons.
We know what happened. He won a Super Bowl with Tampa. So I guess I should not just throw this to the side. My concern is, can you do this? It's because, look, the Barry Trotz for the Predators here, I think his vision is, let's go with some older guys in Stamkos, Marchessault, et cetera, and try to win now, but without messing up my long-term plan of all of these draft picks I have, all of these prospects that I hope that will turn into good players. And as we can tell, it doesn't always work out the way you want. So, but you've got my ear a little bit. I should not completely blow this off. I don't know if the Titans can do this seamlessly.
They may not,
because the new stadium is something to consider.
Yeah, you have to, and you got to get people on board very quickly. My thing is this, and I know I said earlier, and I still hold on to it. If it's up to me, I am going to draft a quarterback and struggle possibly for another year. But at least I know I got my guy, and we're going to get him to that spot, and we're going to improve, i.e. sort of like the Houston Texans or the Washington Commanders. We may get that 1-year hit, but then again, we may see some progression in our team. I would rather the Tennessee Titans go that way, but they would need to show patience in Callahan if they go that way. But if they're not going to go that way, my thing is still draft your quarterback. But if you're talking about a win now scenario, which I think Brian Callahan is in, then you go get a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Because at least Aaron Rodgers, if nothing else, Aaron Rodgers gives us an opportunity to win the game each and every week if we keep it close. He gives us an opportunity to win. We haven't had that the last 2 or 3 seasons. A guy that we know that no matter what, he steps out there, he gives us an opportunity to win. Sam Darnold, you got to sign the 3 to 5 years. And the Titans, I don't think, are committed to signing a quarterback for that long, if indeed they're going to get their quarterback via the draft. So if you don't want to go that route, which I think you should go that route in regards to drafting your quarterback and just struggling through with them, but that will mean you need to show some patience. And they talk about patience, but that patience only refers to Brinkert and Nihil, but not Brian Callahan.
615-737-1025. Okay, I've let you guys wait long enough.
We've been over here like
we veered a little off course, but it's time to throw you that red meat you so desperately want. It's Sports Talk 101. There is a topic that a lot of you want to discuss. I've heard it this morning on our other shows. I've seen it in the text line. I know you're waiting for it. You're salivating. And we're going to get to it next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason.
Give the people what they want.
Yes, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. It's time to start fresh in 2025. Here we are in January. Loan Pronto can help you take control of your finances by lowering your house payment and consolidating that nagging debt. 9 out of 10 borrowers get a better deal by calling Loan Pronto. So don't wait any longer. Loan Pronto has some of the most competitive offers for refis, debt consolidation, purchase loans, starting in the low 5s APR. So if your current rate is over 6%, don't wait any longer. Don't settle for paying too much. Lock in a lower rate, close in as little as 2 weeks, often with no appraisal. Here is the phone number, 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mason, Ginendonic, 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators, Golden Knights, tonight at 7 o'clock, pregame at 6 with Max Hers, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. All right, everybody, it's time. I've teased you long enough. I have to throw the gristle to you as you're driving. Not literally, of course, but Deion Sanders.
Dum, dum.
The Dallas Cowboys move on from Mike McCarthy. There were reports yesterday. I believe Jordan Schultz was the first to report, but it has been confirmed by many other outlets that the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, has had contact with Deion Sanders about the Dallas Cowboys head coach opening. This was Adam Schefter last night, I believe it was last night, discussing this very situation.
Gigantic story of the day. Dallas has an opening at head coach. Thought it was interesting. Troy said maybe not coveted. We get that it's still Dallas and there's going to be interest. Where are they looking?
Well, it is the Cowboys, and they have spoken with, amongst other candidates, Deion Sanders. There is a mutual interest there. And I go back to about a year and a half ago when I had a former general manager say to me, watch Deion Sanders. There's a real possibility he may be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Well, there is mutual interest. We'll see if that amps up. But the two sides have talked. They have touched base. And we'll see if it goes anywhere. Meanwhile, Mike McCarthy is scheduled to interview this week with the Chicago Bears at some point. They can't schedule it yet due to rules, but he can talk to them as soon as Wednesday, and he will be talking with the Bears.
I think the interesting point that was made on Countdown was that 4-day window they missed, right, to make this decision. That really puts them behind other candidates that have interviewed with other teams, and now they're playing catch-up, aren't they?
Well, maybe. If Deion Sanders is the guy that they wanted to hold, it doesn't matter that they haven't spoken to Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson or Matt Nagy or Steve Spagnuolo, the coordinators they can't. But clearly, Deion Sanders is somebody that Jerry Jones knows. There's great respect and admiration between the two men, and we'll see if those talks materialize into anything further.
That was Adam Schefter yesterday discussing the reporting that Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders have touched base about the Dallas Cowboys head coaching job. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, how does this relate to the Titans? What does this have to do with the Titans? Well, Deion Sanders has made it clear that the only way he would consider coaching in the NFL is to coach his sons. Emphasis on sons. There's Shiloh Sanders, and of course, there's Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders is a popular pick to go number 1 overall in the NFL draft. And who do we know that has the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft? Oh, that's right. The Tennessee Titans. So hear me out, everybody. I'm not the only person to say this. Should the Titans consider trading the number 1 pick to the Dallas Cowboys if the Dallas Cowboys want Deion Sanders, and Deion Sanders says, the only way I'm going to coach in the NFL is if I can coach my sons? Well, that means the Cowboys would probably have to move up to number 1 to draft Shedeur Sanders. What do we make of that?
Listen, I'm all for it, but you're just not going to give me picks. You're going to give me your quarterback too. You got to give me your quarterback.
Oh, Dak Prescott would have to be a part of this, I have to imagine.
Me Dak Prescott and other picks.
By the way, the Cowboys have the number 12 pick in the first round. So they would have to move from 12 to 1 in order to make this work.
That's a considerable jump. Now, we've seen teams that have made the jump before, i.e. Jacksonville, when they came up and got Will Allen. They had to move up in the draft. I don't know how far down they were, but they had to move up in the draft. Houston did it 2 years ago, where they moved up in the draft and finagled their way to get both C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. Jacksonville had the number 1 pick when they got Will Anderson. Will Allen that year. Houston had to move up to get Will Anderson, right?
Right. The Cardinals traded the 3 pick to the Texans, who had the 12 pick.
Exactly. So that's what I was referring to.
And that took a boatload.
Exactly.
A pants load, a boat's load of draft assets to make that
Right.
move happen. And
And
that
the
was from
Texans
12
had
to
a
3.
lot. The Texans had a
Yes.
lot because they also got strapped, right? They were controlling a lot because of the position they in and the capital they had, but it cost a lot of the capital.
Yeah, so that's why I said if indeed, you wanna, covet, if you want to grab that number one spot, because this is a coveted pick, whether you believe a quarterback, will be taking number one or not. I still think with Hunter being in the draft, I still think that first pick is a coveted pick, But if you want to come up, you're gonna Dallas. Not only do you have to give me some of the picks, maybe not all the picks, but some of them. But you got to give me your quarterback in return as well. I need a quarterback because essentially I'm moving out that number one spot. I may not be able to get the quarterback that I want, that I've graded as a first round talent or a top 10 talent. I may not be able to get him, but at least you're giving me Dak Prescott. That buys me what, 3, 4, 5 years? So
at a
has
premium
to be,
price, at a very big price. Remember,
but he would have
signed,
to.
He signed a big deal.
Yeah, I would, but that's not something. I wish the Titans had a $50 million quarterback. So when you talk about quarterbacks, that's a guy like Dak Prescott. No, I'll take the contract. Give me all of it. I'll take it because eventually I was going to have to pay my guy.
Could you get a better financial deal? Could you have the reworking of a contract be part of the deal?
Yeah, you probably
so it's not
could
quite
do that.
as
Yes.
expensive. Because I agree with you. As much as you might find flaws in Dak Prescott's game, he looks awfully good compared to what they've been witnessing the last couple of years. Now, staying healthy for him has been a problem at times. But I do think that is tantalizing. It goes back to when you have the first pick, and not the 7th pick, not the 11th pick,
not even a second.
You can dictate and really shop it around and get a lot of good possibilities. And I think what you would hope to do is to get a situation exactly like could develop with Dion, who really wants Shedeur. That's the perfect storm. It's right up Jerry Jones's alley. I'm the lead story in the league every week. It's going to be awesome. And you might get extra. You might get extra assets. You might not only get Dak, you might get an extra first. You might get an extra second. You could. That's what they want. So you can negotiate accordingly. Say, oh, you won't give it this. Well, let me shop over here to the other 3 teams that are calling me about that first pick. So I do think that is very, very tantalizing. That's what I want to happen. If I'm the Titans, give me the Dion, go to Dallas. So they're calling me. And then I want about 2 or 3 other teams that really want that first pick.
Bill Barnwell tweeted this yesterday. Quote, Deion Sanders wants to come to the NFL, presumably so he can coach his son. Dak Prescott has a $104.1 million dead cap hit if the Cowboys trade him before June 1st next season.
Ouch. Well, but you could designate it June 1st. That's pretty easy to do. So the question is, what is it if you designate it as a post-June 1 deal?
Well, you can't do it now.
You can't do that anymore?
Because you're talking about trading
you can't make the deal now.
Yeah,
no, but you designate it. Isn't
I don't know
that
if
a
you
thing?
know.
I think you can
5 months.
designate it as a post-June 1
I believe you can.
thing. I think you can.
But can you do that in regards to a trade? Now,
that's a good question.
Now, a trade is something else. Yes. Yeah. I don't think you can do that in regards to a trade. He has to be. If he's a part of the trade, then you're on the hook. Yeah. Okay. So there's no way. Well, if Dallas want to,
can you just keep it quiet like the NBA? On draft day, you're like, and then you have Peter Vesey saying they're going to trade.
I don't think it's feasible for the Tennessee Titans nor the Dallas Cowboys. If they're going to make a trade for that number 1 pick, Dak has to be a part of it now. It can't be like, okay, you're a part of it, but we're going to backdate it June 1st. No, they're not going to let you do that.
Oh, but the question is, would
June
Jerry
1st.
Jones do all of that, pay the dead cap, just to get Dion and Shedeur? Is that worth it to him? That's really the question. The Titans could sit back; they don't have to worry about it, right? And that would be what you would be getting. What's the financial ramifications of bringing in Dak as your quarterback?
But if you're bringing in Dion and you want that number 1 pick, even if you get up to 2 or 3. You're going to have to move Dak regardless, I think, if Dallas moves up that far. We hope that Dallas does call Tennessee if indeed, by some chance he takes the job in Dallas, which I think is 50-50, not because I don't think Deion can coach. I think he's a hell of a coach. Does he want to deal with what comes with the Dallas Cowboys in that regard?
Sure. Okay. So let's just take this a little bit further, because to me, let's take as a given for now the hypothetical that Shedeur wants to be aligned with Deion. Deion's the coach of Dallas. If you polled 10 GMs, because I am not a GM, I would be curious of what they thought was a fair deal. If Dak is part of it, right? What else in addition to Dak do you get if you're the Titans to allow the Cowboys to move up to number 1 from 12? Because I think you'd have a varying degree, but again, you're in the bargain. You are in the catbird seat with the first pick. This is what Deion wants. This is what Jerry wants. You've got them. So you can't just get Dak. You've got to get a boatload of other picks too, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, okay, say for instance, the Titans choose to stay in that number 1 pick, or if they move down, 5-6 picks, accumulate some draft picks or whatnot. I'm not going to assume that Shedeur is going to be the number 1 pick. I'm not going to assume that. It could be Cam Ward. It could be Hunter. He could fall to as low as 6, 7. I don't think he gets out of the top 10, but hey, he might. Let's just say, just work with me for a quick second. Let's just say the Titans go in, make their trades, but still sign Shedeur Sanders. Still draft Shedeur Sanders because they need a quarterback. Get their bridge quarterback or whatnot. Don't you think that Brian Callahan's seat gets even hotter now if they draft Shedeur Sanders? If Deion Sanders doesn't take a job in the NFL, how much more do you think his seat's going to be hot?
We talked to Teron about
if
this
Deion
yesterday.
stays in Colorado, they draft Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
We already know that.
We
already know that Brian Callahan, he has to do something this season, but we don't know what that do something looks like. Is it a 7-win season, 8-win season, 9, 6? What is it? He wins 6 games. Deion's still out there.
Right. And I think that we talked to Teron about this yesterday. That I think, Adam, you asked the question: what factor is Deion Sanders to whoever? This was before all of this drama started playing out later in the day.
I called him a pageant mom. Like that's what Deion Sanders is. He's a pageant mom. No disrespect to pageant moms. They're very passionate about their children.
He's passionate about his kids.
Well, okay, so Adam, D Mace has his. I think you need Dak, and you obviously are swapping picks in some form.
Yes.
For the first round this year, I want one next year, first round as well next year, and maybe a couple other ones in there. But Jared always refers to the value of each. He's got the chart, but. What would you say off the top of your head? Because everybody would weigh in on that.
I'll tell you tell you what I wouldn't do, and I acknowledge that I do not know all of the particulars of Dak Prescott's contract and all of those things.
Right,
but,
you have to put that aside.
Right,
yeah.
But FanDuel Sportsbook. I don't know who creates these graphics, but FanDuel Sportsbook took advantage of this conjecture yesterday and put together a hypothetical trade between the Titans and the Cowboys. They put it in a graphic. Who says no? The Titans receive Dak Prescott. That's it. The Cowboys receive the number 1 overall pick, a 2025 4th-round pick, and a 2026 3rd-round pick. I say no.
Hell no.
Oh, the Titans don't even touch that.
No.
They hang up the phone.
That sounds like the Dallas Cowboys are in a position of strength.
Yes, it does.
The number 1 pick, not the Tennessee Titans.
No.
I think the Titans will hang up the phone.
The question would be how desperate would the Cowboys be to move up to number 1 and not roll the dice and say, well, the Titans aren't going to pick Shedeur. They know we want Shedeur. They're not going to pick him. We'll trade up for number 4 or something like that. You try to glean intelligence. But again, when you have the number 1 pick, everything revolves around you. You dictate what happens in that draft.
One texter says, wouldn't Dallas have to trade for the number 1 pick before bringing on Deion as the coach? Another team may want that number 1 pick and propose a sweeter deal.
They don't have to. I mean, because
But you want to wait until April to hire a head coach.
No. Yeah, but my thing is, this isn't about it's about Dallas, but what the Titans do has Dallas. You do whatever you want. If you want this number 1 pick, this is what you got to give us. I don't care if you hire Dion or not. This is what you got to give us. Now, if you choose to hire Dion, then hey, the likelihood of you wanting to be in the top 2 are very high. And if you don't get the number 1, nobody knows if whoever takes over the number 1 pick, they won't sign Shedeur Sanders. So if you want to make sure you get Shedeur Sanders, so then you can get your head coach, even though I think the head coach would have been gotten by then, because like you said, no head coach is going to wait until April. And Colorado is not. It's like, listen, either you're with us or you're not.
Right.
Eventually. So to me, what Dallas does in regards to their head coach has no bearing on, I think, what the Titans will want in return. It's like, you want the number 1 pick, you got to give us picks. If you don't have enough picks, then maybe think about trading your quarterback to us. Maybe think about adding a quarterback to sweeten the pot. And then maybe we will give you our number 1. But I'm not sure that if you add Dak Prescott, you're going to get more than the number 1 pick. You're going to get more than 2 number 1. I think you're going to get 1 number 1 pick, 1 first-round pick, but I don't think they're going to give you 2 and Dak Prescott. That's a lot. I mean, that is a lot.
How bad do you want it? If you want Deion Sanders to be your coach,
2 first-rounders, a top 10 quarterback,
and you're taking a lot of you're taking his contract
and
off
your
your
contract. Well, for you, it don't matter.
Right.
You're not taking it off
the dead money either way.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They got the dead money either way. Actually, I'm getting him for a bargain in a sense, because I ain't got to do nothing but pay him for the next couple of years that the contract has left on it. Now, if we rework the deal, that's something else. But coming in, I'm only on the hook for him for another 3 years?
But what you're weighing, if you're the Titans, is you listen to everything that Dallas has to say, but you're also listening to everybody
Other
else
teams,
that would like to get in on that first pick. And I have to think.
you're listening to the Raiders.
If history
you're listening to the Jets.
If history tells us anything, that those quarterbacks will move up. They will be more and more enticing, despite what everybody says right now about, well, this isn't a good quarterback class. I have heard that before. But by the draft day, they always tend to move up the board, and somebody tends to want one of those guys. So if you are willing to pass on one of those guys, I think you can help yourself a lot, especially if you have 2 or 3 teams competing and offering, well, they offered you this, I'll offer you this plus X.
615-737-1025. It is your time to play Armchair General Manager, which is one of my favorite things to do. 615-737-1025. What would it take for you to accept a trade with the Dallas Cowboys for the number 1 overall pick? The Dallas Cowboys have the number 12 selection in the first round of the NFL draft. The Cowboys seem to have interest in Deion Sanders. If Deion Sanders wants to play with wants to coach his son, they're going to have to get up to the number 1 pick or very close to it. So if you were Armchair Titans GM, what would your trade package be? 615-737-1025. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. This was Deion Sanders to ESPN on Monday night. Quote, to hear from Jerry Jones is truly delightful, and it's intriguing. I love Jerry and believe in Jerry. After you hang up and process it and think about it, it's intriguing. But I love Boulder and everything there is about our team, the coaches, our student body, and the community. We'll see how true that statement is. But I tasked all of you at 615-737-1025. I want your armchair GM trade packages. What would it take from the Cowboys, who have the number 12 selection? What would it take to allow them to move up from 12 to 1? Let's start with Bill in Knoxville. Bill is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bill, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
I would like to have Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, so you're not interested in the Cowboys trade at all?
No, I don't think so. I would rather have Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
I really feel if you could put a good supporting cast around him, I believe he can turn things around. I really do.
You think he's got fuel in the tank at 41?
I think he's got fuel in the tank. I think he's got a little bit of great talent juices left in him.
The one thing you could do with Rodgers.
Thanks for the call, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
In your thing, which you've entertained this, D-Mace, is you could go down the Rodgers path.
Mhm.
You could still then really aggressively wield the first pick to somebody. You could do Rodgers and trade with the Cowboys, right? You just have to work around the Prescott part of it. Prescott maybe isn't a part of it. You let the Cowboys worry
Deal
about
with
to do
that,
with
yeah.
Dak on their own, and you deal there. But it would table, if you don't like who the rookie quarterbacks are this year or the other free agent quarterbacks, short term with Rodgers, wield the number 1 pick into a bunch of picks and address the various holes, which there are a lot of them, on the rest of your roster. I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it.
You
can do it that way. You could do it the way that you chose to do it with Ryan Tannehill, which you already sort of was building a team. And then when Ryan Tannehill got here, you had some core pillars of the team still here. So y'all were able to win with them. But there's a shelf life with guys like that. There's a shelf life with Aaron Rodgers, 1, maybe 2 years. There's a shelf life with Sam Darnold. But Sam Darnold, you get him for longer. But I think if you're going to invest in Sam Darnold, he needs to be our guy.
Yeah,
we're not drafting nobody else.
I'm not in on the Darnold thing.
Yeah, we're not drafting anybody else if I go get Darnold.
Adam in Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, Adam. I don't want Dak Prescott, man. You're going to take an aging, injured quarterback and put him behind the crappiest line in football? That's smart. The same thing with Aaron Rodgers. He's been hurt. You're going to put him behind the crappiest line in football? No, thank you, dude. I would rather you get 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third. And then you go get Aaron. I mean, if you want to get Aaron, whatever, dude, but you're not going to put, we're only going to get this pick once. And you're going to waste it when you got all the chips, baby. They want him. If Deion's coming, they want him. So I would make them pay for it for the next 3 drafts. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third at least, at very minimum. That's the capital I would want. But I would not want an old quarterback back there. I would rather run it back with Levis than to run it back with some old quarterback that's going to get killed back there and be upset. And then we've already had to pay him $50 million or whatever, dude. I wouldn't want any part of that.
Thanks, Adam.
Hell no, I wouldn't go back to Will Levis. No, not as a starting quarterback. I would bring him back. He'd be on my roster as the backup quarterback, but I'm not bringing him in as my starting quarterback. Listen, whether you bring – because to me, Dak Prescott is just like – it's not a main part of the trade you would make with Dallas. It's just something – yeah, you give us Dak, it entices it even more. But – the trade isn't predicated on whether you give us Dak Prescott or not. If you don't give us Dak, then you're gonna have to give us some other stuff. So
I think you said it
exactly.
So financially you can get out of the Dak,
and that's what Dallas
after maybe 2 years.
Exactly.
Right?
So to me, again, and people may not feel it. You may feel this way now, and then they bring in Aaron Rodgers and he started winning games. Then all of a sudden, I knew he would do it. Listen, the Titans are in a position right now that if they don't get it fixed somehow, some way, either with a short term but then a long term plan, they're not going to be good no time soon. I'm telling y'all that. So whether you draft a guy and make him your guy and sort of deal with some of the growing pains there. But a lot of times, if you do that, and Tim said, you got to hit on him, because if you don't, man, you setting your team back even further. So you can go that route, which I think they should do, and and sort of build around there, or you can go to in regards to getting Aaron Rodgers, a year or two, still draft a quarterback, and now there's a bridge, a true bridge there, because I don't think with Aaron Rodgers, you get an opportunity to trade out of the number 1 pick, accumulate draft picks, continue to build around Aaron Rodgers, and draft the quarterback of the future. And then once he's segueing out, then you allow that guy, hopefully at that time, i.e. Love and Rodgers in Green Bay, hopefully he's ready to take over. And now, because you built up your roster, because you only had 1 year committed to a guy or possibly 2, now you could take off running.
We may have a very important call on the line. Jerry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Is this Jerry Jones by chance? Jerry, what's your offer?
Dak Prescott, number 1. They're number 1 this year. Next year, 2 number 1s and a starting right tackle.
Oh
boy!
Reword that to 2 years, $30 million with a 3rd-year option.
Thank you for the call, Jerry.
So who is the tackle? Like, is there a name attached to this?
He said
right
Dallas
tackle?
right tackle.
Whoever that is, I don't know who that is off the top of my head.
I'll have to look that up.
If indeed you are able to get that, the 2 first-round picks,
Terrence Steele was the right tackle.
Terrence Steele,
a right tackle, and you're able to get Dak Prescott now.
Wasn't that guy in 50 Shades of Grey?
I think so.
Terrence Steele.
You're right. I think you may be right. But you're not going to get Dak for no 2-year, $30 million. You're not going to.
No, he's making lots of money right now.
He's not going to take a pay cut to come to a team that hasn't been winning.
I do think you might have some wiggle room to be able to say, well, Dak, you're getting paid a big amount of money from Dallas, or you've been paid.
Like with Russell Wilson to an extent with the
me
Broncos and the Steelers.
If you want to win,
right?
help me out a little bit here. Let's leave
right.
us
How
some
much
room.
did the Steelers
Tom
pay Russell
Brady
Wilson?
was renowned for giving the Patriots some breaks and not grabbing every penny he could make with the value he had, because he wanted to give them some wiggle room to win.
Yeah, but Tom is different from a lot of other guys in that regard. I think Joe Burrow did it a little bit, took a little less, signed some guys, and he said he would. Now, in Russell Wilson, I think Denver still had to pay him
a ton.
30 or 40, something. It was a ton of money.
The Steelers basically got him for the veteran minimum.
But that's because
Denver was paying him. Denver had paid him.
Yeah. Did they trade Russell to Pittsburgh? They traded Russell to Pittsburgh, right?
I think Russell Wilson was cut.
Yeah, he was cut. See, that was the reason why they were able to do it with Russell, because he gets cut. Denver still has to pay him, and I could bring him on as $1 million because he's getting the rest of it from the Denver Broncos. With Dak Prescott, the only way you could do that is if Dallas cut Dak Prescott, and they're not cutting Dak Prescott. That's not the case. So
I'm gonna double check this.
Yeah. So
Thomas in Hendersonville, by the way, as Willie looks that up, says there's no way this organization is winning in the next few years anyway. Take Dak as a bridge, along with ammunition you can use in a few years to trade for Arch Manning.
I'm not even thinking that far now.
That's a mistake, I think, to set your sights on one person down the road. But I do think you could say, I think my odds are better that the next quarterback coming down the pike is better than what we have to offer this year. So on the right tackle thing, I don't know that you trade for the veteran right tackle right now, but you trade for enough assets to where you're like, okay, I have enough picks now. I can go get the right tackle and address edge rusher, all the other things, a dynamic wide receiver, young wide receiver. These are the things that they need, and they have a checklist that they've got to get. Right tackle is definitely on
people, let Arch Manning play a whole season before y'all start anointing him the next great Manning. Okay, let the kid hadn't even played a full 3 games or 4 games, like a full 4 games.
He could end up being Cooper Manning, as far as we know.
So let him play first before we start. Oh, let's tank for Manning the next 5. I don't know if this kid's going to be good or not.
Kevin is in Union City.
By the way, the Broncos did release.
Okay.
Yeah, they released him.
They released Russell Wilson, and the Steelers signed him.
Kevin is in Union City on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Kevin, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, so thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
The only way any trade makes any sense at all is if we get a first this year and a first next year. That has to be, regardless of anything else,
I think
we have
that's
to walk away
reasonable.
with the first this year and next year. So to me, and I might be shooting for the moon here, but I really honestly think that the value of Prescott is around maybe a late second, early third round pick, something like that. Thinking like maybe Ryan Tannehill style trade. With that being said, I'm going Micah Parsons first this year, first next year, and Dak Prescott, and hang up the phone there. That's what it's going to cost.
Micah Parsons
and Dak Prescott.
We do. Thank you for the call, Kevin. We have.
Dion's going to say, hold up. You guys can have Shador. I need Micah Parsons.
We have a proposal from the
Okay.
suit himself,
Oh, the
Chase
suit. I
McCabe,
saw
who, if
the
I'm
suit.
not mistaken, is a noted Cowboys fan.
He is a noted Cowboy.
He said, I take Zach Martin. He's a guard. Give me pick 12, pick 76 in 2025, a 2026 first, a 2026 fourth, and Dak. Hold them over the barrel. I'd also take an O lineman in place of the 2026 fourth. So Chase McCabe holding the
Weighing in.
Cowboys over the barrel.
Hey, you might as well.
Hold
You
them
got
over the
number one
barrel.
pick.
I'm all about that.
And
Hold
if they
everybody
want
over
it,
there.
this
Yeah.
is what you have to give me.
There's one
can't-
place you don't want to be held over. It's a barrel.
It's a barrel.
You can't put a price on a father's love. That
Unless-
should be what the
unless-
Titans should say.
Unless you had a late night, on Broadway.
Yes.
Then you don't mind being held over the barrel.
Is that into the category of puke and rally?
Exactly.
Yes. Let's get another call here before break. Frank is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Frank, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Well, I think Micah Parsons, you want to get a proven player. You don't want to come out of this and say, well, we busted those picks, right? So it's just a player and a pick for me. And so it's Micah Parsons, 25-year-old Micah Parsons, and a pick. We'll take their pick. What do
Okay.
y'all think about that?
Wow.
Thank you, Frank.
Well, you have to
is
give me a
that
little bit more.
Is that offered?
Yeah, I mean, I take Parsons, and I take your number one,
He's unbelievable.
your
He's
12th pick, but then I need another number one.
What is the contractual situation with Parsons? Is
They
he
gotta-
signed the big deal yet? I
Nope.
know that's so.
No, he
so
hadn't
you got to
signed it.
pay him
Yeah,
a
you got to
boatload of
sign
money.
him to a boatload of money.
And I think again, does one player? They just learned this lesson with Snead, and this is I did say this when they made the deal, and I
He is
didn't
set to enter. Parsons is set to enter the final year of his rookie contract.
Okay.
And is scheduled to make $24 million on the 5th-year option.
Okay, so you got your 5th-year option. You got to pay him the big money. And so,
Did you say big? Did you
Big.
say big? Okay.
And
Enormous.
as good as he is, he can only do so much, right? He's one guy.
But that one guy.
But
whew.
okay, but Snead, the philosophy with Snead is, hey man, he's going to help us for a number of years. Let's pay him
But
good money.
Parsons can help Snead.
What? No question, it's tempting.
Yes.
But you still have holes
Yeah.
A, B, C, D, E, and they're not. And you don't get extra picks. I need picks.
Yeah.
I
No, I
can't
get
just.
it.
It's not just a player and a pick.
Yeah.
I need a lot of picks.
Yeah. You
Six-
want to give me Parsons? I take Parsons, but you got to give me
I need
this
some more
year's number
picks.
one.
Yeah.
You got to give me next year's number one.
We
too.
are the opposite of the Los Angeles Rams who won the Super Bowl. F them picks? No.
I
We
picks.
need them picks. 615-737-1025. We'll take your calls and texts on this. Play Armchair GM. It's our favorite thing to do. If you were the Titans, what offer would you accept from the Dallas Cowboys to move up from 12 to 1 so Deion Sanders can coach his son in the NFL? 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Stillman and Company coming up next. Jared will be live from Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Golden Knights tonight at 7. Barry Trotz joins Jared at 5 o'clock right here at Barrel House. So continuing to take your armchair GM suggestions for a Cowboys-Titans trade so that the Cowboys can get the number 1 pick, draft Shedeur Sanders, and have Deion Sanders coach the team. Huffy and Dixon on our text line says he'd take a first-round pick and a couple of them cheerleaders. I mean,
that's
I don't think if that's all it takes, man, goodness gracious.
Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders are valuable property.
Well,
I didn't say that.
I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it.
That's not what I said.
I know. As soon as it left my lips, I said, "Oh crap!" I apologize to all of our
yeah, it just
female
came out
listeners.
wrong.
Yes.
When you talk a long time, day.
Yes.
I've said a bunch of curse words. On
There's been a lot of movies.
Yes.
There's been a lot of documentaries. About
They have
the
one out now.
cheerleaders. Yeah,
I believe.
They are an iconic brand, the Dallas Cowboys.
There is a
cheerleader.
brand.
That's what I should have said.
And there was a great moment in the end of the season where the guy shanked the
It wasn't
kickoff.
a great moment for the cheerleader.
Yeah, although she handled it like a champ. She took one right in the noggin. And the guy, the ball boy or the photographer who was there, whatever, he had a vest on, like sideline pass and everything. He tried to make a play on the ball. Like, dude, get a hand on it. He missed it, and it hit her right in the back of the head.
Larry is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Larry, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
And just say no to Dak. But I'm all about Micah Parsons. So I think Micah Parsons, this year's first round, a second this year, a third this year, first next year, a second round, and a first the following year.
Oh man, anything else?
You gotta get. Well, first of all, I don't want to trade with Dallas. I'd rather trade with one of those top 6 teams because you know the top 6 teams are not going to be good next year.
Mm-hmm.
So the Titans might have 2 opportunities to pick in the top 5 next year. That's what I'm doing. But if we're going to trade with Dallas, let's go for Michael Parsons.
You know what?
Thanks for the call.
Thank you. To think about that more, I think the listeners are on to something because with Michael Parsons, you don't have to deal with future contractual obligations. Dak, you got to deal with it now. I know you got to deal with working around the 1 year, 20-some, or was it $30 million for that 1 year. But if you're trading for Michael Parsons, you can actually work the contract yourself.
Yes.
And listen, you need a rush in. That's a
position, a premium position.
Exactly. And you need a guy. So to me, it doesn't seem out of the, out of scope of possibility that they can say, all right, give us this, and Michael Parsons, because we got to rework the deal now. They don't know. I mean, I'm sure Dallas will eventually probably more than likely sign Parsons back. But just say if they are not if they don't want to go that route. Now they can trade him away, allow you to deal with it, and still get their number 1 pick. But if I'm the Titans, maybe instead of asking for Dak, I'm asking for Michael Parsons. Make sure we work the deal out before we get him in the trade. So now at least we know what monies we are obligated to Michael Parsons, which is he's going to be the top paid defensive end in the National Football League.
He's going to break the bank, and they were already in some cap trouble. I know this would surprise Jared, but they did have some cap issues because they had to pay Dak a lot. They had to pay CeeDee Lamb a ton, and there was a lot of talk like, if you want Parsons, you can't pay both of these guys and still have enough money to pay. If you did, it would have ramifications for your whole roster, and their roster is thin as a result.
To the caller's point about not wanting to trade down to 12, Willie, you mentioned this during the break when we had Teron Davenport in yesterday. He was talking about the cutoff of the top tier draft prospects. He named 5 or 6 players. So if the Titans were to make this deal, they would have to accumulate enough assets probably to move back up. So they trade from 1 to 12 and maybe from 12 back up to 6.
Ideally, I think you'd like to get back up into that range to where you could still get the player that, quote, you want. You have your eye on somebody, you still think you can get that person. So I do think that is something to think about.
But I think if you can broker a deal between the Cowboys, now listen, broker a deal with anybody you can, if they're giving you exactly what you want. But if you're brokering a deal with Dallas, I think now I'm more so in the circle of give me Michael Parsons, give me the first round picks, and then once I have that, now I can do what Houston did, take what you have accumulated, at least some of it, and now move back up. And now I got my pillar at rush in, and I can go out and get my pillar on offense. And then this may open up the door, since as much as I like Jeffrey Simmons as a player, and I think he's a dominant player when he want to be, it opens up the door for a potential Simmons trade. Now that he's putting, reposting stuff about, the Mike Vrabel and New England Patriots. It's like, okay, what do you got for us? Now that we got Parsons, now let's broker a deal between New England. If you want to go there, or if New England wants you, let's broker a deal between New England to get you there. But New England has to give us something in return, picks in return. So maybe that helps you sort of accumulate more picks and potentially moving up in the draft. Because now if I get Parsons, even though I didn't look to trade Jeffrey Simmons, now he becomes a trade piece in regards to trying to move him somewhere else and accumulate even more picks.
Ant is on our phone line and has been waiting patiently. Ant, thank you so much for waiting. Please go ahead.
Okay, so my pick a little bit different. I'm not gonna take Dak or Rodgers. I want Cooper Rush.
You want Cooper Rush as part of this deal? Why is that?
This year's first round. Just because it'll buy me time to draft my future quarterback and then replace who we got now, Mason Rudolph.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's how I'm going to do it.
Thanks for the call, Ant. So Cooper Rush, that's not one I expected to hear. I mean, if he's part of it, sure, he should be the centerpiece
I
of
need to
it.
hear parts, B, C, D, E, F. There's got to be more.
He's like F.
Yeah, he's a throw-in.
Exactly.
But I see his point.
I get it.
You're tabling it for another year, and you're trying to get as much draft capital.
But I think they can get a better.
But Cooper Rush puts you in the
Rush.
same situation you were in with Mason Rudolph this past
Right,
season.
right, for a year.
A little bit
while
more
you
mobility, yes.
maneuver to angle for the next guy is because I think you can only play that game for 1 year. You have to take your swing the following year if you don't take it this year.
My thing is with the Titans, however they chose to sort of however they choose to build this team, and if they choose to move out of that number one pick or not, to me, they still have to find a future quarterback, I think. And they don't need to commit unless you're committing to Darnold, and maybe you do, maybe you do. I don't know. But I'm looking to commit to a quarterback for 1 or 2 years, because ultimately I have to find my franchise quarterback. And if I can draft one of these quarterbacks, let him sit for a year while another guy plays, a guy that's going to win us some football games, then I'm going to go that route. I would like to, Shador or Cam come in and all of a sudden we're good and off we go, a la Washington, Houston, even though it took them years prior to that. That's the ideal way. But if we can't get to that, then yeah, I will, take a 1 year quarterback, draft a guy, and hopefully it works out to where, as this guy is exiting out the next final year or the year after that, my quarterback that I drafted this year is segueing in and he's ready to go.
Wonderful suggestions, everybody.
Yes.
We'll continue to monitor this story, because with the Titans having the number one pick, more of this is going to be flying around for the next couple of months. Quickly, Willie, tonight, Predators back in action at home, facing the league-leading Vegas Golden Knights. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Vegas 29-11-3 on the season. The first opportunity for Jonathan Marchessault to see his ex-teammates tonight at Bridgestone Arena.
Yeah, I think that will be a big part of the story. Vegas has done an excellent job, no doubt about it, with everything that they had planned to try to move on without Marchessault has worked extremely well. They're getting great years from guys that have not been, scores. Like I'll take Brett Howden as an example. He's got 15 goals. There's a guy that has outperformed and helps you with the aggregate, make up for the 42 goals.
It
that
also
you
helps
lost.
that Jack Eichel is playing like an MVP.
Pavel Dorofeev, who was a third-round pick, has blossomed with 16 goals. I mean, these are the things that have come together. This will be the third straight opponent that the Predators have played: Winnipeg, Washington, Vegas. Division leaders, where all of the goals you set out to have your best year, everything has fallen into place for the first half of the year. It has gone more than well, right? It's gone ideal almost for those three. And it's the polar opposite for the Predators. I think that's in the backdrop of this game, and certainly it's through Marchessault that we're going to say. I'm really curious to see how he plays tonight.
Predators and Golden Knights tonight, Bridgestone Arena. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jared Stillman, of course, will interview Predators general manager Barry Trotz right here at this very desk at 5 o'clock. I'm sure there will be plenty of tough questions, as there usually are, for Barry Trotz, but that'll do it for us today. Jared Stillman and company. Coming up next, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful, blessed, and safe Tuesday. Peace.